Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the show. Glad to have you guys here on this October 26th, 2023. I gave it a shot. I did a couple shows. I did this show like twice, and I just couldn't say exactly what I wanted to say. But what I'm going to say next is take it with a grain of salt. What that means is it's just basically my own conception of where we're going with all this. And doesn't necessarily, it's my ideas of where all this is going. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to happen this way. So take it with a grain of salt, what I'm going to say next. But it's what I think. I think there's a race going on between two potential things, and the outcome of either one of these things is going to be basically the same. A tremendous depopulation event. Unprecedented in human history. The darkest period in human history. It's just about ready to begin. And there's two things on a race with each other. One thing is money. The money system in the entire world is corrupted. It's money has become a digital ledger. And because it's become a digital ledger, money doesn't exist in the real world. It's not real. Like in the United States, for instance, in actual physical bills, there's only about $1 trillion is all. Yet this digital ledger is like 50 times larger or 100 times larger. But it's all just a digital ledger. It's not real. It doesn't exist in the real world. And it runs on the internet, which is vulnerability. What I'm talking about basically is, you know how you go to a fast food place like McDonald's and you get in line. Next time you're in line, observe the people in front of you. Probably 9 out of 10 times when they go to pay now, they'll hollow a little device that's got buttons on it. And they'll slide it into the person's car and they'll push a couple buttons and they've paid for their dinner. This wasn't the way it worked 20 years ago. Everybody paid cash. Cash is physical, exists in the real world. What they're paying with does not exist in the real world. It's part of a large digital ledger worldwide. If money ceases to function worldwide because they've put us on a system that has massive vulnerabilities, and I can point out the vulnerabilities. It's vulnerable to solar flares from the sun. It's vulnerable to the big undersea cables that have been laid during peacetime. In wartime, those are going to be the first target. And that's if this system, if the vulnerabilities are what's the word I'm looking for, when they take it, the enemy takes advantage of the vulnerabilities within the system, that whole part of our system could actually cease to function. And with the ceasing of it to function, everything that we know would cease to function. Everything that we know that supports our life, the system supports your life. Where do you get your food? Most of you get food at the grocery store as part of the system. Where do you get your power? Most of you get your power from the power grid. That's part of the system. Where do you get your money? Well, the banks rely on the power grid to keep this digital ledger running. It's all vulnerabilities, and war exploits these vulnerabilities. But not only that, the financial system itself is inherently flawed. And so it's a race going on. Now, getting back to the race thing, what race are you talking about? Ask me what race. It's a race between war and the financial system collapse. Which one's going to take us out first? So I was sitting there analyzing it last night, thinking about it. And I said, how long we got? If war is going to take us out, how long do we got? Well, they're going to get started in this. They're on one front now in Europe, Eastern Europe. That started a while ago with Russia's invasion of Ukraine and the proxy war that's going on by sending all these weapons to Ukraine. That's ongoing. It's getting ready to break out on a second front over in the Middle East, and then it's going to break out on a third front over in the Pacific. And when it really gets going, and it's on three fronts, there's going to be massive casualties. And ultimately, it's going to come down to this. One thing it's going to come down to. It's going to come down to men and ammunition. Because it's going to be a conventional war. It's going to wage in three fronts a conventional war. And it's going to last until one side or the other starts to actually lose. The superpowers will be fighting against each other in a World War III. And it's going to come down to when they start to run out of ammunition, when they start to run out of the means to fight. And how long is all that going to take? I'm thinking a couple years of conventional World War III warfare. Which, there's no other way of cutting it. That is going to have a profound effect upon our financial system. They're going to have to support the financial system during that period in time. And in doing so, they're going to push us toward inflation. Wars are inflationary. It costs money to fight a war. Where do you get that money? You go deeper into debt. The deeper into debt you go, the more less value your currency has and purchasing power. So you got probably 2 years until one side starts to win or the other of this. I don't think the financial system's got 2 years left. So in this race, which is going to win? I think the financial crisis is going to beat the war crisis. I think the war crisis has got about 2 years until it goes nuclear. And I think the financial crisis hasn't even got a year left. And of course, what they do is, when they run into the financial problems, then they beat the war drums even harder. So we're headed into this period where either one of these two crises, if we have a nuclear war, it won't take out any more people than an all-out financial crisis would take out. Because in an all-out financial crisis, what you're looking at is, you think your power grid's going to stay up and running? Think again. What do you think's going to happen if all of a sudden the financial system freezes up and all of this Fugazi money, the money that exists on a digital ledger only, ceases to function? And they can't get it back working again. Because, I don't know, maybe saboteurs, or maybe just the fact that it deflated on them. Like it wanted to do in 2008, but this time it completes the job and the system melts down. And ultimately, in an all-out meltdown like that, I don't even think that they would know who owns what. How are they gonna run this ledger? The computer, see, they rely upon the computer to tell you who owns what. How do you know how much money you have in the bank right now? Well, the computer keeps track of it. Well, what about when that computer doesn't function any longer? Maybe it just can't get power. Maybe every time they turn the power on, saboteurs blow it up or whatever. I just don't know. But this is the world we're headed into. We're headed into a world where you can't rely upon anything. As soon as this whole thing breaks open, this whole nut breaks open in the Middle East, then it's really going to be on. And then on top of that, the icing on the cake, we're going to have it break out in the Pacific probably too, because when China sees our vulnerabilities, In other words, we get into a Middle East war and we start to run low on ammunition, run low on men. Who knows, maybe lose an aircraft carrier or whatever. Then China's going to be just rubbing their hands together saying, we can take Taiwan now. Oh my gosh, we're in trouble. But all of these problems haven't really manifested or started quite yet. They're getting close. You know? Closer and closer it's getting to this D-Day. Let's take a look at some of these things going on. India. They sentenced 8 Navy officers of the Indian Navy to death in a spying case. The court in Qatar. How is that going to affect relations between India and Qatar? Israel has launched a ground raid into Gaza that lasted 2 hours long. They've destroyed militant infrastructure and anti-tank missile launching positions. And what they're doing is, quote unquote, preparing the battlefield for a ground incursion. Russia and China have blocked the United States Security Council resolution backing Israel's right to self-defense. So it shows you what side. I told you sides are being drawn. United Nations warns Gaza blockade could force it to sharply cut relief missions as Israeli bombings rise. And if we take a look in Gaza, it says families in Gaza are probably starving to death as aid trickles in, says a World Program official. It says aid reaching into Gaza is just a drop in the ocean of what is really needed. It says humanitarian aid being allowed into Gaza is just a drop in the ocean compared to the flight of civilians inside the territory. Okay, what's this? It says an Iranian-backed group in Iraq claimed responsibility for an attack on a military base housing U.S. forces in eastern Syria Wednesday. String of attacks targeting U.S. military facilities in Iraq and Syria persist. What a mess. We're coming to a period in time in the very near future where the world's going to go through a restructuring. What I wanted to say about that is, I think, now this is my personal opinion, again, like I said at the start of this show, take what I'm saying right now with a little bit of a grain of salt, because I'm just putting it out there, my ideas on what's going to happen is, but I believe the world's going to go through a restructuring. The whole world go through a restructuring. And I think it's going to last 4 to 6 months long. But on the other side of this restructuring, I think we're going to come out way for the better in all of it. Because what we got right now is just, first off, it's totally unsustainable. Second is the people haven't learned not to wage war. And I think after all this is over, I think they're going to learn their lesson in a hard way. I think what we're going to see is, and this is the part where, take it with a grain of salt, again, I'm just stating you what I think. I think we're going to lose half the people on Earth in about a 6-month period of basically us sabotaging ourselves. Us people on Earth, all of us people on Earth, and we're all people on Earth, basically sabotaging ourselves with hate. Hate is the fuel behind it all. Sabotaging ourselves, and then we're basically we're gonna starve. You want to find out what everything's going to be like? Just imagine in your mind right now, if you were in Gaza this morning, what it would be like in Gaza. Picture the whole world being like that. No water, no food, no electricity. Maybe even worse than Gaza, because the people that live in Gaza, they're sort of united in suffering through this thing. But we're not going to be united, the people out here. They're going to turn into total savages. And I believe there's going to be a period of about 6 months where human life ain't going to be worth 5 cents, and there's going to be no law enforcement anywhere around. And you're going to be on your own with no power grid, no water, unless you've prepared for this. And even if you've prepared for this, you've got to be able to hang on to what you got. I think it's going to be the darkest period in human history coming right up, and I don't think it's going to last very long. But on the other side of this, I think things are going to be so much better after it's restructured. They will have learned their lesson. And probably for the next 50 or 100 years after that, they'll talk about this and talk about it endlessly. What's going to happen? They'll say, oh, how did we let that happen? Blah, 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 blah. How could we have been so stupid and a loss of human life and all this? And they'll lament about it for the next 100 years. But when they first move into this new structure that they create, it'll probably be much better than what we have now. Because somehow through all of this evil, they're able to see the error of their ways. And they'll restructure it so that it's not so evil anymore as it is right now. Right now, this system is evil. There's no other way I can cut around it for you. There's no justice in this system. This system is totally evil. And it's got to the point where it's beyond repair. The only thing that's going to repair it is it collapsing. And it's going to collapse very soon. And it's going to take an awful lot of people by shock, because it is just, they don't expect, they don't see it coming. They're not keeping their eyes open, seeing the lead in. Yeah, sure, some of them are a little bit nervous, and they see a little bit what's going on, but they don't pay much attention to it. They're too busy with their stuff, like trying to keep up with the Joneses, or trying to improve their lives, or they're just too busy. And this system has a way of keeping them busy. Taking a look at the silver price today, $22.68, down 17 cents. I understand, because, look, I'm very busy myself. I mean, but I have to, this is my job. I have to keep my eye on this. I'm kind of the guy that's watching the stove so that the pots don't boil over. But I mean, it's been a hard job this morning putting this show together, because there's just so much negativity. I had to do it like twice. It's like the third try, and my voice is starting to get a little bit, because I'm talking so much. But anyway, listen, guys. I got to get this show done. I got to work on brakes this afternoon on my car. Thank goodness it's sunny out. I'd have to work on it in the rain if it wasn't. But anyway, Uh, so I'm just like you guys. I got to keep my nose to the grindstone, working every single day, practically. And if I wasn't in this business of watching this, if this wasn't my job, I might have so much else on things that I'm doing that I might not be able to see this coming, and I might be taken blindsided by it too, like a lot of people are going to be. But they're going to start to wake up more when they see that war breaks out in the Middle East too, and then they're going to even wake up more when the third war breaks out over in the Pacific. But if you've been watching my channel, you've seen all this coming for a long time. So silver's at 22.72. They're playing this same game. They'll probably knock it down to 21.75, and then it'll go back up to $23 or $24. And more of the same for that. For now. For now. 90 cents up on gold at 1980. Taking a look at cryptos today, 34,000 for Bitcoin, so it's come down just a little bit. Ethereum is at 1779 and XRP is at 54.7 cents. Dow Jones Industrial Average is down 94 points at 32,941. Oil's down $1.39 at $84. Bonds and rates, we're looking at fallen yields today. U.S. 10 years 4.89, it fell 6 basis points, and 5.1 basis points down on the U.S. 30 year at 5.04. And the dollar index is at 106.86. We're on the eve of war. On the eve of it beginning. Because I think that this war in the Middle East, when it really gets going, is going to really overshadow the war in Europe for now. I think the war in Europe might intensify later. Catch you guys in the next show, and you guys have a great afternoon.